Hi there. My name's Shannon, and I'm Willamette Week's music and visual arts editor. And today I'm here with rapper and voguer Maarquii. Maarquii, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, so I just want to start off by asking, like, how have you been these past few months? What have you been doing to sort of like stay sane amid everything that's happening?
Yeah, at first, like when like lockdown and quarantine started like popping off, I was sort of like not really like addressing it in my like I knew it was serious and a big deal, but I wasn't really like dealing with the fact that things were about to like really change. And so I was like working out like every day to like avoid you know sort of like dealing with it. I was like, oh, I can still go outside and whatever. So but then like a month turned into two and 2 months turned into three, and now I've just been like really trying to make sure that I protect like my peace. And so I've just like been cooking a lot and sort of trying to like learn my way around Ableton and like how to record at home. Yeah, just like trying my best to stay informed and like help where I can, but also just I don't know, keeping to myself a lot because I think like external, especially on social media is like it's so much right now. So
You're also the house mother of House of Juju,
mhm.
and you guys kind of debuted as a house not that long before lockdown happened. Um,
Right.
so I'm curious, like, what House of Juju has been up to during quarantine, and sort of what you see as your responsibilities as a house mother during quarantine, when there's not like balls to go to, but you still have
Right.
to take care of.
Yeah, I feel like, when I started House of Juju, I wanted, of course, to be involved in ballroom. But I remember distinctively telling my house that our work would be so much more than the balls, that it would involve like we would very much so be involved in community and like the health and well-being of our community. And so since lockdown, one of the biggest things for me is really trying to understand how wealth distribution works and um, how to get involved with like reparations networks to like redistribute that out to the community and resources in general out to the community. I think that like when we talk about accomplices and allies and like non-black people showing up and doing the work, especially white folks, I think that that is like some of the biggest work, because again there is an inequity in when it comes to like the levels and class economically. And I'm really passionate about black people getting the fuck what they're owed. So that's been one thing that we've been working on in my house, as well as meeting and praying and engaging in ritual with each other to keep that connection and keep our spiritual health up and recharge, so that we can go out in the world and be okay in our bodies, and also potentially help someone else be okay in theirs. And for Juneteenth, we had a little libation pouring ceremony in the park, which was in essence like the work and the responsibility, again, I feel, as a house mother of a house like House of Juju, where um spirituality and like specifically Black African spirituality is like the main focus. Doing that was like really eye-opening for me, as like, oh wow, this is like the work that you are being charged with doing right now.
Right. Well, and another thing you've been doing that you haven't mentioned yet is that you've been asking people to post like cash apps and stuff in the comments.
Yes,
Um, so
yes.
yeah, how has that been going?
I think that like there's for me in the past, I know that there is, when it comes to like reparations and that term, reparations. I feel like in the past, like when I was coming up, reparations towards Black people was used as usually like a butt of a joke. And, you know, as I've gotten older and more educated in like the history of this country and the oppression of Black people, I understand that there's nothing funny about it. You know, it's actually like what the fuck we're owed. My only thing with, posting the cash apps is one way to do it, but I'm really wondering and trying to research how to make that sustainable. How do we get networks going that are like there are ongoing, resources being like given to the most marginalized, aka Black people? How do we make that sustainable for the community? How do we get that into like legislation? Like how do we make this something that has to happen to where people aren't relying upon posting their cash app in the hopes that they will receive something. I think that is helpful, and that flow of redistribution is helpful, it's appreciated, but I'm really worried and concerned about how do we make that more sustainable long term.
Sure. Yeah, and we are at this point where, there's all these conversations happening that, people have been talking about as a while that has been dismissed by like mainstream white America as
Mhm.
radical, crazy ideas, like,
Yeah,
abolish the police, which, a year ago, a lot of people might have dismissed that as that wasn't really a part of like mainstream conversation.
totally.
Now it is. So, like, do you think, occasionally at protests, you will see a few like reparations signs here or there, but it hasn't like quite come to the fore as much as, abolishing the police has, but it's part of that
Yeah.
too. So do you think that that's the next step in this conversation or next piece, I guess?
I think I definitely think so. Um, yeah, there's no they go hand in hand. You know what I'm saying? Like history is rife with instances where our things that were owed to us were taken. Period. Whether it was, once we were freed and again we rebuilt and had booming economies full of Black people, Black wealth, each time that it was allowed to happen, um, destruction. And so that is the only, aside from again abolishing the police that we all know were created to patrol slaves, um, and putting wealth back into the Black community. Like I don't see how we can get much further than where we are if those two things don't happen, especially putting equity back into the hands of Black folks.
And the other part of your work that I definitely want to make sure we talk about is, of course, obviously your music. Uh,
Yeah.
and you did release a song back in March, "Lame Hose," which great song,
Yeah.
by the way.
Thank
And
you.
but I know that you also had you had plans to shoot a video, you had like a GoFundMe and everything to like go down to LA.
Yes.
So what's the state of all that right now?
I have been so like music of course is like my first love, and I've been definitely in a deep like writer's block recently because I'm like, what the hell do I even write about? Like, I um it yeah, it just hasn't been like really coming to me um as it normally does. Like as again, like my work lately, my like focus has been like deeply spiritual, and not to say that I don't connect with spirit through my music, but it's a different type of ritual. I don't think I think I've maybe written three songs in like since March. Played around with stuff, obviously. Like in the beginning, I was like trying to write a song a day or like at least freestyle once a day. But honestly, like I don't know, I definitely lost like my spark for a little bit because I was just like, I don't know where I'm pulling from, and I don't want to I want to make sure that I'm pulling from an authentic place.
Do you have an idea at this point of what that looks like?
I think I just want to speak to more like softness, and that was like what my album was already going to be. It was definitely going it definitely is more R&B and vocal like leaning for sure, because that's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. But again, I feel like singing and rapping, like, they both require honesty, but I feel like singing there's a level of more vulnerability for me anyway, like using my singing voice. And so I'm really excited to like learn to let my like guards down around that, and like, yeah, sort of sing from this like a different place.